Hello out there and welcome to Political Platform. We are on Ray Power FM, Africa Independent Television, AIT, and the Political Platform on the YouTube channel. I'm Okiri Agbonsuremi, always glad to have you on the program. As largely anticipated, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has gone to the Court of Appeal against the judgment of the Federal High Court in Abuja, which nullified part of the electoral guidelines for the conduct of the 2027 general elections. The electoral body is seeking a stay of execution of the judgment pending the hearing and determination of the appeal. Of course, we talked about this in our previous episodes, and we said the Independent National Electoral Commission has a right to, but many thought that INEC should not go because the appeal could disrupt the processes. But in their wisdom, they are now at the Court of Appeal. We will take a look at it when we discuss and tell you if they win, what happens, if they lose, what also happens. The primaries of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, continues across Nigeria. It's still going on. The states, we hear that they are taking all the documents to Abuja for collation. 3 contenders, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, former Rivers State Governor, also former Transport Minister Rotimi Amechi, and former Managing Director of the Northern Nigeria Development Company, Mohammed Hayatuddin. Results from the states we hear will be collated and announced today in Abuja when they all arrive, after they have arrived. Now, we will not stop updating you on what is happening with security because it's part of what we have resolved that we will put the government on their toes to make sure that we do not just talk politics and forget those who are in captivity. Again, bandits attacked the Emir's Palace in Yashikira in Kwara State on a Sunday night. This is different from the attacks that we reported before. They set parts of the palace ablaze and take several individuals, including one of the wives of the Emir. A part of Kwara State are currently, as we have seen in the last couple of years and months, under siege as attacks, hostage-taking have become the new reality in parts of Kwara. Of course, this has also spread to Oyo State, where we told you, where we have people under hostage as we speak. They have not been released. We also talk about those under hostage in Maiduguri, in Borno State, that have not also been released. Our main focus today is deep development. We are talking about the fight against corruption across Nigeria, particularly institutional corruption, and we will focus on the National Assembly's efforts, which is commendable, to strengthen the office of the Auditor General for the Federation through legislation. Civil rights activist and lawyer, Mr. Eze Onyekpere, will join us to discuss a new audit bill that is now awaiting President Tinubu's assent. We will take a look at that bill, take a look at the advantages of the bill, how the office of the Auditor General can be strengthened to be able to fight corruption, and particularly institutional corruption. My colleagues are here in the studio. Mustafa Mohammed on the far right. Mustafa, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Okiria. The security issue is very disturbing. Many cannot sleep at night with their eyes closed. I think the security agents need to do more. The agencies need to do more. And the federal government should give them the support beyond lip services, logistics, welfare, intelligence, and whatever can make this problem to come to an end.
And Amechi Anakwe is also on the program.
Good morning.
We have Amechi, we have the APC, the ADC primaries. We know we reported on the the one faction of it. But this is the one everybody is actually waiting for. I want to believe that this is the one even the APC themselves.
Interesting.
This is what they are waiting for because of the personality.
We saw the voting as it took place yesterday, and some also the political counting in one or two places as it were. But
in the ADC as well.
Yes, in the ADC. But for INEC's decision to appeal that judgment, our concern was that it's going to introduce uncertainty in the polity, because which electoral act which electoral guideline do you use to administer the electoral process? Is it the one?
But that's why they are asking for a stay.
But the good thing is that they asked for stay of execution. So let's wait to see whether the courts will grant that. And I think it's very important the court grants it, so that
stability.
Yes. So you plan with this. The outcome will now be for the next election or the next round of off-cycle elections.
Uju Eje is also here, the Amazon around us here.
Ohiria, the issue of insecurity for me is a very painful one. I was just thinking, and I realized that in that school, pupils 1 year old, 2 years old, were abducted. Now, those children have been wherever they have been kept all that time up until now, and still they have not been rescued. You can imagine 1 year old, 2 year old, 3 years old, 4 years old children. I mean, it's so painful. I think that the authorities need to do more. And as I keep saying, please try and fish out the moles within the security apparatus of this country. Fish out the moles that are giving these bandits and terrorists information on what steps government has been taking. Fish out these moles, deal with them. Let's develop the political will to tackle this thing head on.
Now, you know where the ugly picture is? It's not just the attack. It is the dehumanization that victims are subjected to.
Even
Imagine
children.
The emir in the palace. You come around, as we will put it here, mess him up completely, set his
desecrate
the palace. You take away several people. And
they started with the attack in Burma. The emir's palace was ransacked, set on fire, burnt cars. That was what they did in Burma. And the emir of Goza was killed by those Boko Haram. And there might have been a lot of village heads, even
several of them.
Several of them, especially from Borno. A lot have been.
And that is because they have high hostage value. When you abduct the children of the family members of an emir, the ransom you pay will be higher. If you abduct school children and their teachers, because of the pressure on government, the hostage value is high. And we are hearing that there are some negotiations between those that carried out the attack in Oyo State. There have been some lines of negotiation open between them and government. I was thinking, will it end up in payment of ransom? And I recall what the National Assembly tried to do some years ago when they tried to criminalize ransom payment, but Nigerians shouted them down. If that had been in place, government has also been accused of indirectly paying ransom. So government would have ramped power of that.
As if ransom is even paid in the public place. Is it paid in the marketplace? If you say you criminalize the payment of ransom, who is going to be your witness in court? Those who collected the ransom.
Those forests whether Sambisa, Kuyambana, whichever forest we are talking about, are not in the skies. Those forests are within the territories of Nigeria.
And they are known.
They can carry out what in security circles called sweep. Using Recce aircraft, Google pictures, can sweep the forest through various angles and then bring it to an end. But you see, those people will also have active collaborators. That is what is making the security very difficult.
Like, insiders.
The Minister of State for Defense, when he was a governor of Zamfara, Matawali, he told us here in Maitama that in most villages where some of these highness are taking place, they had informants and collaborators. And of course, the security agents have done a lot by fishing out so many informants the past few years. But you see, greed is an attribute of the human.
It has become an industry.
It has become
Very
an industry.
lucrative.
And then let me take you back quickly to those neighborhood youth wielding sticks and daggers that we showed yesterday on AIT. If you have unemployed youth like this and uncared for,
They are ready to be recruited.
these are readily available hands, not just for political thuggery, but for other crimes such as kidnapping, abduction, or whatever names you want to call.
But let me ask, Uju, let me ask. When we are looking at payment of ransom, I know there's the cryptocurrency, there's the dollar payment, it's even possible there's foreign collaborators who help move these monies abroad.
So that it won't be too bulky.
Is it beyond our government structure to know where money is moving on from?
Is it beyond our banking structure?
Yes.
Because they won't move this money through the airports in Ghana must go bags. There are banks that they will pass it through. Even if it's transporter banks, they can be traced. You see, it's a very, very very, very pertinent point that you just raised now. Those monies are passed through hands. They are passed through banks. They are passed through financial institutions. And these can be traced. I mean, when government wants to go after certain people, they know how to do it. So these can be, that's why I'm saying that there are collaborators, there are moles, people who aid these things to happen. And then Amechi was talking about when they said, when the National Assembly tried to criminalize ransom paying and the people screamed. Why would the people not scream? Because they have lost confidence in the institutions of government. They've lost confidence in the ability of government to secure the release of their people. When the government is trying, I mean, in recent times, we've seen, more efforts to rescue people. But you see, these things are not enough for the people. And that's why government needs to reassure the people. They need to make them understand through actions, not rhetoric.
Yes.
Through actions, not rhetoric.
That's where I want to pick it up from.
They want to, they need to make the people understand that they are competent, they're capable, and they will.
Most times you hear the security chief say, demand on the people, be part of it, give us intelligence and all that. I said, it goes beyond this. That's a normal thing to do. But where the criminal groups are competing with government in recruiting, as government is recruiting personnel into security agencies and government offices, they are recruiting people. They are buying intelligence. That's why communities will want to relate with them, because the intelligence they give these criminal groups, these terrorists, they pay for it. So government must outcompete them in recruiting people, in buying intelligence, in all aspects. You don't just sit back and say, oh, we are doing it. There's security votes. And we have to begin now to question to what extent the huge allocations to the security agencies are security votes. When you say security votes, that's what you should go into. U.S. military buys intelligence. So when we give them, we ask them, go and outcompete them so that community members will kowtow to you rather than wanting to get to their side.
Okiria, there's a fundamental cause for all these problems. You see, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu removed subsidy when he came. Has been giving a lot of money to the governors, the billions. And have these governors used that money to emancipate people from poverty? Because so long as you have poverty in the land, unemployment, lack of basic infrastructure, people have needs and wants. To be able to satisfy what they want, what they need, some of them will become criminals, and there's nothing any system can do. So it's a two-way thing.
And the other, we talk about the financial institutions, whether we have lost out, we are not able to monitor. Of course, we are talking about the grant payment. Allegedly, some institutions, they say, some people even say the government is involved in grant payment of ransom. But the ones that we hear, the one that concerns us, some of us have been making contributions. They don't go through the banks. It's cash. If 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, we gather it together, they give it to one person to go and
where did they gather
some.
the cash from?
Sometimes, the last case I heard, they advise the family members go to petrol service stations and get cash, not mint. Those reusable cash. So
now,
they know
now the question is also if we know that citizens are paying ransom. We can't deny that. So many people are. If they have not held your person hostage, you don't understand.
But
it.
you know, we just not long ago paid for the release of our
colleagues.
colleague.
Now,
colleague.
what is the government doing to also harvest information from citizens who are compared? Because you go to the police station and you report to them, they say, okay, well, we are on top of the game.
We have launched an investigation.
Yeah, we have launched an investigation.
Oh, they can't follow because the Americans doesn't have
they
fuel.
short of encourage you to go on to communicate with them that they are doing their own part. You can also do your own part. And of course, everybody want to have. So, are we in a jungle? I mean, are there no coordination? Are we in a state of?
Nature.
We are on our own. I mean, you have to find ways to solve your problems. Well, let's leave that now. Let's leave that now. Let's come to politics before we get in our guests. Our guests will be coming in as soon as we take the break. But I will tell you that we can only determine what will happen if INEC wins or loses the appeal. If INEC wins, we will continue with the guidelines it has set up, including the timelines for electoral activities, election activities. If INEC loses, the guidelines and the timelines will be adjusted according to the court's judgment. That is the best we can possibly say about what has happened in court, because we have to respect the court. We have to give them the opportunity to look into it. But we can tell you what will happen if it goes either ways. And that is what I have just told you. But let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll have our guests in the house to take a look at how we can use the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation to fight corruption. Don't go away. You are on to Political Platform.
In the hallowed chambers where laws are forged and a nation's destiny is decided.
This is your parliamentary program, Inside the Parliament on AIT.
Voices rise, opinions clash, debates ignite.
We cannot be apologetic in the discharge of our constitutional duties as lawmakers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The body have proven that the election can be peacefully and in accordance with law must shift to INEC.
From the Senate to the House of Representatives, this is where policies are tested, laws are crafted, and authority is held to account.
We spoke to some lawmakers on their opinions of the document presented by the president.
Every motion, every argument carries the hopes of millions.
We need more hospitals, more health clinics in communities so that they can effectively take care of the primary health need of our people.
The questions are tough. The exchanges are intense.
Mr. President, you can have your way, but I will have my say. You can use the gavel, and I will use my voice.
And those who want the proviso are 55 in number. And so the proviso says,
But who truly stands for the people? Who is driving the change that defines our tomorrow?
GTBT, whatever.
Get the answers on Where Nigeria Decides on Inside the Parliament on AIT every Tuesday, 4:30 p.m.
Thank you for remaining with us on Political Platform. And a new audit bill has already been passed by both the chambers of the National Assembly, that is the Senate and the House of Representatives, and is currently before President Tinubu on his desk awaiting his assent. The House of Representatives passed this bill sometimes in 2023, and the Senate endorsed it in 2025. A harmonized copy of the bill is what I said is before the President. The President has not signed it. Maybe they are taking a look at it. Maybe the Attorney General of the Federation is taking a look. But how long does it take the President to take a look at a bill that is a watershed on the office of the Auditor General of the Federation? The bill aims to strengthen the independence of the Auditor General. It explicitly guarantees that the Auditor General will operate free from the direction or control of any authority, independence of that office. It establishes qualifications and introduces a transparent and competitive appointment process for the office. It also provides security of tenure and clear removal procedure tied to constitutional safeguards. Our guest, Mr. Eze Onyekpere, is Executive Director of Center for Social Justice, CSJ. He is a lawyer specialized in development law, including fiscal governance. Thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning.
My pleasure.
Now, let's go into the detail of what the current office of the Auditor General is doing and what are the challenges.
Let me start by saying that beyond a few provisions like the appointment procedure and removal procedure and the general declaration of independence in the performance of his duties, which you find in the Constitution, we do not have an extant audit law. Why do I say so? The Constitution simply provides a framework upon which you have to.
The last one we have is 1956.
Let me tell you why it is no longer extant law. By Section 5.1 of the revised edition of the Laws of the Federation 1990, in those military days, a panel was set up to review the laws of the Federation, and those that are no longer entitled them by that Section 5.1, if they were not reproduced in the laws of the Federation, they cease to be part of the corpus of Nigerian laws. And that reproduction, if you go to the 1990 laws of the Federation, where you had that audit ordinance of 1956, what is written there is superseded by the 1979 Constitution. And to tell you that that provision is still extant, in the laws of the Federation 2004, the audit ordinance or act was not reproduced.
So we don't have a law.
Yes.
We don't
so
have a law.
Continued reference to the audit ordinance or audit act of 1956 is a misnomer, because it's no longer reproduced in our laws. So beyond the few provisions of the Constitution, we don't have one. So that's why I even fault the National Assembly by saying we are trying to repeal an ordinance that consecutively in 1990 and in 2000,
that doesn't exist.
You did not even put it in the laws of the Federation. So moving from there, that establishes the fierce urgency for Mr. President to assent to the audit bill. Or in the alternative, if he's not minded, maybe because of any advice he gets from any of his principal officers, he sends the bill with a communication back to the National Assembly to say, this is a good bill, but sections B, C, D are not in tandem with the Renewed Hope agenda, the Constitution, or whatever he thinks that is right. Please touch them up and get back to me. And he has the majority in the National Assembly. So complete silence is not the answer going forward.
Here is the same silence by way of providing the background that the Buhari as president maintained when the then National Assembly also passed an audit bill. He refused to assent to it, and he did not provide any explanation. And it is in tandem with the practice of Nigerian government, successive. And I dare say, any institution, any law, any policy that will enthrone accountability and transparency, they tend to ignore it or put it down. Going back to the Fiscal Responsibility Act that they have refused to implement in full and are abridging. Going back to the Procurement Act that says establish National Procurement Council. As far as the Executive Council up till tomorrow is illegally awarding contracts. They have refused to set up the National Procurement Council. And so this audit bill, they will refuse to empower it because the implication for them is that the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation will have teeth to bite. Because based on the normal practice, if there's any infraction, they query MDA, they don't even respond to them. Quantity of response, they don't give them.
Dr. Amechi, I want to be optimistic that this President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will assent to this bill. Like our guest said, it is possible that they are looking at the end. But politics,
he has to withstand the pressure because those around the president will always put the pressure because they will be the losers. Those that handle revenue and expenditure will be held to account. And as long as you're in government, you wouldn't want that to happen except the president breaks away from that circle around him and say, I'm looking at the country. As a patriotic president, as the father of the nation, if you want to do away with corruption, I will sign this bill.
I like Ohiria's optimism. I would like to go with you. I mean, that's the hope of Nigerians who really mean well for this country. It's not even just, the ability to bite, but the ability to even concentrate and detect the anomalies within the country's financing system. You know, because the way it is now, there's so many things that are done haphazardly. There's so much there's so much cover up. A whole lot of things are not even clear. There's no transparency. Giving them independence, they will not be able to dig and find out those things before they can even begin to bite. Let's even know what is happening.
I sympathize, I sympathize with the office of the Auditor General as currently constituted. I know I'll be part of a team that followed the processes, particularly through the Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly. Take a look at what they say about audit report. Now, if you have a system that operates 3 budgets at the same time, and it takes
4 sometimes,
and sometimes 4 budgets. That is 4 years budgets, all of them rolling at the same time. On the average, it takes the Auditor General's office a minimum from what we have gotten now for historically, at least 4, 5, 6 years to even take a look at what happened in the past, which means if the Auditor General is going to look at the budget, now it will be looking at the budget of maybe
2024, 2025.
I think the point is that the constitutional anti-corruption agencies, I mean, I'm trying to distinguish between EFCC and ICPC, which are set up by laws of the National Assembly. For me, you can't compare them with bodies like the Auditor General in the Constitution, the Code of Conduct Bureau in the Constitution. Now, the beauty of this constitutional anti-corruption agency is that there is an embedded due process and professionalism built in.
Yes.
If you know how auditors work, you prepare your financial statements and accounts, submit to the Auditor General. They look at what you have done.
Within 3 months, under this
They look at it and say, but Austin, 1, 2, 3 don't seem to have followed due process. Just a query.
Yes.
Can you explain further? Where are the vouchers supporting the payment? Where is the approval from the approving authority? So you are already given a fair hearing.
Yes.
If you produce those documents to back up to show that you follow due process, there it ends.
Yes.
It's only upscaled in the Auditor General's report when you do not provide a satisfactory answer. So if you look at most of them, these 2 bodies I'm mentioning, they've been poorly funded. In no part of civilized humanity does an auditee propose the budget of the auditor. If I am to audit you, sir, and you are the one to give me money to determine the amount of money, and you know you have committed infractions. So empowering me with force is that you want to go to jail.
Let me take you on that. Is that why the listed agencies and ministries who have defied the audit laws, the officials have not been punished? Because the past few years, such lists have been coming out.
Because the Auditor General does not have power to sanction, which is part of what this new audit law says. Before, ministries will ignore, but now they said if you ignore an audit query for more than 30 days, the Auditor General can direct the withholding of the emolument of that particular officer.
Yeah, as a sanction to
and
get
he
it to
can
act.
also impose a surcharge on the person who has caused a loss on the treasury. And that surcharge is actionable. That is now in the law. So what you had before was an exercise in futility, report writing. Auditor General will write one report, goes on the shelf. Public Accounts Committee will write a second report, goes on the shelf. There is no mechanism for implementation. But now there is a constitutional a provision that allows them to, move on and collaborate with other agencies. There's even a provision now in the new law that says the Auditor General can trace, even through the banking system, if you have moved public money to intermingle with corporate money or private individuals, he can trace it and get to the root. So, expanded powers. In fact, now the Auditor General can summon, and you are bound to come and answer that summon. And when you come to answer the summon, he administers oath to take evidence. And so the implication is that if you even lie on oath, you're already committing the offense of perjury. So these are the powers that the office have been provided with now that will make it a bit more functional. And it even further proposes that in June, the office should send its budget straight to the National Assembly. not through the minister.
First line charge?
No, straight to the National Assembly, because it has to move away. That's why I'm saying an auditee is not supposed to
because
be
their reports are
going
sent
to fund the auditor.
Assembly.
So, and if you look at now, about 3 or 4 years behind, the Auditor General's reports, I think the last one we saw was it 2022 or thereabout. They're about 2 or 3 years arrears. First of all, they don't have the manpower. Secondly, they are so poorly funded. And so this is why this kind of things should clearly come up to ask Mr. President, if you are really interested in the Renewed Hope agenda working, if you are really interested in a lot of benefits, let's even take one. If we begin to audit our accounts properly, recover monies to the Treasury, we are going to stop leakages. A lot of leakages will be stopped. And if it becomes clear that Nigeria has become more transparent, because when you go to borrow, while you are paying 10, 15%, some countries are getting those loans at 2, 3% because of the risk. They look at you, a country, and say the corruption risk, the risk that you could not pay back. So these are the benefits that when you are seen in a better mood, that you are less corrupt, even when you go to borrow, you are going to borrow at a lesser interest.
Here, you said you're optimistic. Would you also share the optimism? I'm pessimistic. That because if I have been following this audit bill for a long, even for decades, and based on what he has put on the table, it is like a silver bullet that will check corruption in transparency. And those in corridors of power, they hate transparency because they feel it's their turn. So that's why it's the responsibility of the media, civil society, to put pressures on the president. He's the only one that can save this situation. By putting his feet down and by that stroke of pen, sign this bill that will because every day we hear of revenue leakages that revenue generating agencies are not reporting. They are diverting the money because there's no Auditor General's office that is empowered to compel them to do so.
If you are talking about anti-corruption, any leader who will have the courage to remove subsidy is also strong enough to sign this bill.
I agree with you totally.
I believe
that's the real courage. Courage to fight corruption.
I also want to, the reason I agree with you, Mustafa, is that, for goodness sake, we know, for those who have read it, some of us knew him in person. I mean, we knew him during the civil society, those days, the Nadeco days.
The agitation,
the struggle. This is somebody who created local government when the federal government said, look, you don't have a right to create local government. And when he came, he has come up with some executive bills that you can see these are bold steps that we can take. Now, I don't want to be optimistic that the president does not want to fight corruption or is afraid of the office of the Auditor General doing its job. The National Assembly should be commended for doing what they have got to do. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, like I always say, is one person who I believe, and it's only the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, anybody who sits in the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that can change the system. And I believe he fits into it. It's not like massaging him or trying to say that, but I believe if he really chooses to do it, he will do it. If he can sit down and say, stop feeding, gone, he can do it. Why not?
Yes, I think that he can do it, and he has the guts, the spunk to do it. And again, I think it will go a long way in silencing people who have been accusing him of corrupt practices, involvement in corruption. This is one way to come out and tell them, look, I stand to fight corruption. I am sincere in what I have said. I think that he really needs to do this to clean up that stigma.
The beauty of this bill is that for the first time, we have appointed, Nigeria is going to appoint an independent auditor to answer the question, who audits the Auditor General? Today, nobody audits the Auditor General's office. So while he's busy looking for where you failed, there's nobody empowered to look at his own. So now this bill says, at the end of the year, an independent auditor will be appointed. And he will have all the powers that the Auditor General has to look at your books.
Are we appointing from among Nigerians, or they will do the usual bring from Europe and America?
No, they will be Nigerians.
Or they will be Nigerians?
Yes, Nigerian auditors. Who will audit the Auditor General and then now report to the National Assembly. about how he also performed his own duties.
I also want you to speak. I also want you, Mr. Eze, to speak to some of the provisions in the new bill. The bill creates a corporate autonomous federal audit service with legal personality and operational independence. It establishes a federal audit board responsible for governance, staffing, and institutional oversight. It is a complete autonomy. They want you to operate. They want you to determine qualifications. They want you to determine who you want to use to do your work. It is not like the federal civil service employing people and sending them to the auditor's office and all those things. And then it ensures representation across geopolitical zones and professional bodies. This is a very sound. I wonder how the National Assembly were able to really come together to get these kind of things assembled. But I want you to speak to those.
It's a beautiful bill, particularly setting up that audit service, separating it from the civil service. But there is also where the snag is. Because if you look at the test schedule, the Federal Civil Service Commission, they're empowered to talk about everything about promotion, recruitment, and discipline. So I also suspect whoever is in charge of the office of the head of the civil service may think his or her empire is about being divided. But that same constitution talks about the president giving an order to exercise any part of the civil service from there. So, you can't just lump them. This is a specialized service. And part of why they may not even be efficient is that they're poorly paid, like every other civil servant. But agencies like EFCC, I understand ICPC have, even the revenue service, they have special salary scale. And that's where qualified auditors who are chartered accountants should belong. Because you are shopping in the same market for auditors.
You made a fundamental point where you say the Auditor General should be audited by another team. Yes. Now, Nigeria has a precedent of when a report is submitted, another committee will be set up to review that same report. What is the danger there?
No. This is not a report. That person is not auditing the Auditor General's report. Auditor General is auditing how you spend public money and resources and the policy. That person is coming to audit the Auditor General to see the money it was given and how it has expended.
Then other committees will be set up to...
No. Reports to the National Assembly. Okay. So, in essence, what I'm trying to say is that this new bill now says, Audit Service Board, look at issues of recruitment and remuneration and conditions of service based on people with similar qualifications in other agencies, and they need to retain top-class staff who have to be there. So if you are paying an auditor in an MPC so much, there's no reason why the Auditor General's auditors
cannot be paid.
Should not be paid because they are going to audit the NMPC.
If you look at the current audit process with the current, because you said there's no external law. That's why I said the current audit process. The audit office of the Auditor General carries out audits in arrears. Like we just said, sometimes that's something to submit a report of 5 years ago because MDAs refuse to do what they're supposed to do. But under this new bill,
they have 90 days.
90 days, 3 months. And because it should be timeous. Now, when they do it and they're frustrated and because they lack the powers to discipline or punish, they will just turn it over to the National Assembly through the Public Accounts Committee. They will lay it before the National Assembly. They will adopt it. And that's where it ends. To me, I felt that the EFCC and the ICPC should be patiently waiting every year for these audit reports. Once they are laid to the National Assembly,
that's actually where I wanted to ask them.
Their work has been done, finished, no forensic.
That's what I wanted to actually ask Isley to speak to. I wanted Isley to speak to the governance, to the governance and the accountability benefits of this.
Now, there is a provision now which explicitly encourages the Auditor General to collaborate with other agencies. If you look at how the anti-corruption agencies have been set up and structured, you will notice that a place like ICPC do more of education and prevention. EFCC do more of the prosecution and the gara-gara. You see, the Auditor General...
You mean part one?
The Auditor General should be part of this ecosystem. They should be working together. Because like his own is pure due process. There's no politics in it. You do your account, they come and look at it, raise queries, and then they move on. So I agree with you that if we are running a proper anti-corruption system, the EFCC should just be waiting somewhere.
Waiting anxiously.
Anxiously. And as soon as they give a query, you don't provide the correct answer.
They move in.
They move in. Because a prima facie case, in law, has been established for you to now rebut or provide an answer. If you didn't do it to the Auditor General, well, gentlemen, we'll come and explain further. But that's not happening. But now, I think that what I see is that even agencies in government are also, without even law, many of them now are signing MOUs for collaboration. I know the Fiscal Responsibility Commission has done with a number of other agencies. So that is, whether it's by statute or simply on their own, this is expectation. Auditor General, EFCC, ICPC, and Code of Conduct Bureau. That's another agency that we've just ignored that has not been strengthened. Because even if you look at, if you are conversant with the work of ICPC, they do what they call corruption risk assessment and system studies. It's not a prosecution, it's not an investigation, but they look at your systems and tell you one or two things that
there are gaps.
Are many gaps that are amenable where corruption.
Let you ask her question.
I want to make a comment. For me, what is the catch for me is the fact that the bill establishes qualifications and introduces a transparent and competitive appointment process. Because we've had cases where you have square pegs and round holes, and simply because somebody has been in the system for a while, the person is just pushed off. That competitive appointment process is a catch for me. At least with that, we'll be able to get the right people to manage, let me say, our economy, to manage the finance of this country. And I think that's what's the catch.
Now, let me ask, as we wrap up with you, let us take, though myself and only Amechi is not very optimistic that the president will ascend, but the rest of us believe that
the government cannot jail his. Because I recall, sorry, let me just when Obasanjo was pushing the EFCC, the National Assembly members said they will be the first victims.
In fairness to him, Obasanjo did not sign the audit bill. The audit bill, there were 3 sunshine laws passed during the late hours of Obasanjo. Fiscal responsibility, public procurement, audit. Obasanjo ignored them and left after the third term. Yar'Adua came and signed the first 2 and left this. During Jonathan's days, this bill came and fell through the cracks again. National Assembly passed it. During Buhari's days, National Assembly passed it. And there was evidence of transmittal to the presidency. The presidency denied receiving it. So under Buhari, the audit bill was lost in cyberspace. Today, so this is the 4th attempt, and that's why we are here.
Let's wrap up with this. Despite the optimism and the pessimism shared here, let's look at the risk of non-assent by the president. What happens if the president also...
The huge risk is that we are going to fritter away a lot of goodwill and economic benefits. For instance, the IMF, every time they come for Article 4 consultations, they keep reaffirming this issue of audit. We've just existed the Financial Action Task Force grey list. We risk falling back. And like I did say, issues of credit rating and how other nations look at us. And all these monies, imagine all these monies we are told. For instance, look at the $2.9 billion that they use for refineries. And nobody is discussing that, nobody. Imagine if we had that. Couldn't we be using it instead of going to look to the World Bank to borrow another 1.2? So we risk continued borrowing, we risk continued mismanagement, and the beauty, in fact, the most beautiful thing that I've not talked about is that I was taught in elementary law that law is the command of the sovereign backed by sanctions. If you remove sanctions from the law is a more moral adjuration, ropes of sand. It's just like you are going out. You call a goat and put some yam and say, this goat, put your hand in your ear. How many times did I call you? 3 times. If you touch this yam, as you are leaving, you've already... So this time around, if sanctions are introduced into the auditing process, it will make sure that Nigerians, everybody behaves. So that's the risk if we don't...
All right. You wanted to say something just before we go? Are you dropping your optimism or you are emphasizing it?
Well, I said with a pinch of salt.
I want to trust that our president
Let's
this
pray.
current
Let's pray.
president,
Let's pray.
he will sign this bill. I believe he will sign it. He will take it through all the process, go to the National Assembly and say, I don't agree with it.
And once
I may not agree
he
with
signs it, you stop seeing
because
it's been springing up here and there.
because he can actually sign it,
Yes.
and if there's any problem, they can always go back for amendment.
He will not
yes.
sign because the victims.
Say
Please
that
don't
amendment.
read
And
this
then you don't say
petition.
that.
It's my opinion. I can express it. He will not sign because those that will run foul of the law are those in government, those controlling juicy agencies.
All right.
They are the ones that will be
Let
first
us-
victims.
We
let us-
pray that he
let
will
us-
sign
let us
it.
wrap-
We pray
let
that
us
he will
wrap up
sign
because
it.
we have our
Amen.
mails to take. We need to go to give you what you have got to tell us through your mails. But we must appreciate first Eze Onyekwere, my very good friend, a strong voice in the civil society arena, and we want to thank you for this insight. We actually needed somebody who understands it the way you have done to be able to allow, let those who are hearing you, who are watching you, who are listening to you, understand what is happening. And also to remove us from the politics we are talking every day. There's governance to be done. Thank you so much for joining us.
My
on the
pleasure.
program.
Thank you.
And when we come back shortly, we'll take the mails. Please don't go away. You are on to Political Platform.
Ìdìbò ilẹ̀ Nàìjíríà tí à ń pè ní INEC ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ ìpele kẹta àti ìtókẹ́yìn fún ìforúkọsílẹ̀ olùdìbò káàkiri orílẹ̀-èdè yìí. Ìforúkọsílẹ̀ yìí á bẹ̀rẹ̀ ní ọjọ́ Ajé ọjọ́ 11 oṣù karùn-ún ọdún tí a wà nínú rẹ̀ yìí tí yóò sì parí ní ọjọ́ 10 oṣù keje ọdún yìí bákan náà. Àǹfààní yìí wà fún gbogbo àwọn tí ò tí fi orúkọ sílẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀ rí tàbí àwọn tó ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ pé ọmọ ọdún 18. Àwọn tó fẹ́ fi orúkọ sílẹ̀ lè ṣàbẹ̀wò sí ojú òpó ìforúkọsílẹ̀ INEC ní www.cvr.inecnigeria.org tàbí kí wọ́n lọ sí ọ́fíìsì INEC tó bá wà ní agbègbè wọn níbi tí wọn ó ti tẹ̀ka pẹ̀lú fi àwòrán wọn sílẹ̀. Tí káàdì olùdìbò yín PVC bá ti sọnù tàbí bàjẹ́, ẹ lọ sí ojú òpó ìforúkọsílẹ̀ náà tàbí kẹ́ lọ sí ọ́fíìsì INEC láti béèrè fún ìrọ́pò rẹ̀. Ìkéde yìí wá láti ọ̀dọ̀ iléeṣẹ́ olómìnira tó ń ṣètò ìdìbò ní Nàìjíríà, INEC.
Thank you for remaining with us on Political Platform, and we have the privilege of hearing from you through the mails. And when you send us your mail, citizens' perspective is heard, and we go through them, and we also give you back, so that at the end of the day, we all are sharing views, ideas on how to move the country forward politically. Uju Eje, you have all our mails.
Yes, Mekamba sent in this one from Abuja. The World Bank recently revealed that Nigeria is its third largest borrower with a staggering total loan of $18 billion and still counting if President Tinubu's latest request for a World Bank loan of $1.2 billion is taken into consideration. These loans are tagged for reforms across agriculture, electricity, job creation, trade, healthcare, education, road, etc. But looking across the length and breadth of Nigeria, the impact of these loans are yet to be seen anywhere or in the lives of suffering Nigerians. These loans I make bold to submit are in one way or another ending up in the pockets of people in positions of authority and other private individuals for their personal aggrandizement. Better chunk of these monies will be deployed to fund the perpetuating of people in power as we gradually inch towards 2027 general elections. We know this, but would rather pretend and play the ostrich. Amechi Obochi from Kubwa has a second mail, and it says, the federal government last week directed public universities to commence payment of a new Consolidated Academic Tools Allowance, CATA, for lecturers using internally generated revenue pending full budget implementation. While the directive may appear commendable, one must ask, do most Nigerian universities truly have the capacity to generate sufficient internal revenue? The answer is largely no, except through increase in tuition fees. Only a few universities in Nigeria can genuinely boast of strong internally generated revenue, as both public and private institutions largely depend on government support and rising school fees for survival. By placing this responsibility on the universities, the government has indirectly empowered them to increase tuition fees, thereby placing additional pressure on already struggling parents and guardians. Omolayo John from Orozo, Abuja says, ADC mustn't fret on PDP's 2023 style of primary election commotion that set the party on political epilepsy. Opposition political parties in Nigeria are in disarray: weak ideology, dead manifesto, parallel convention, and factional leaders. We deserve a leader, not a ruler. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Please keep your mails coming, politicalplatform@darkgroup.com. Now, just before we go, one just brief comment, 30 seconds, on the university system. I have a feeling that if we allow the gown to go to town, they will be able to make money. It's a very simple thing. All the researches that are done in the university systems, go to the Silicon Valley, they are the ones that actually turn the industry around. They are the ones that make. So there must be a change of attitude by our system. They should be funded, and then they should be able to take those research from the shelves, all those PhDs, all those master's degree researches that are done on industry and other things, take it out to the industry, and they can make money.
Yes, even within the university system, they can also make money. You recall when UNILAG was having serious financial problems. I think was one professor, is it Jalili or not? I can't quite remember. Yes, that came up with ideas. UNILAG started making pure water to sell to the students. They have a radio station now. They have facilities that are put in place that generate money. Instead of students going outside the school to buy these things, they have them within. Even outsiders come to purchase things from the school. And so they're making huge revenue within the system there.
I understand that outside, in Western societies, universities make money because they're autonomous. We have not achieved full autonomy. You still do the appointments for them, and it's like tying their hands and turning. But that's a long-term thing. Because of our high literacy rate, and because our education system is not developed, poverty, economy not developed, I think the universities making money will be something for the future. The government has to continue to shoulder bulk of financing.
The curriculum in our educational system, higher institutions, are not made to develop the country. This curriculum, old and archaic curriculums, are to produce civil servants, not research-oriented. In fact, you go to Europe, for example...
Is it not time we begin to turn it around now?
Exactly.
Now that
you see, graduates from polytechnics even do more than those who came out from the university.
All right.
But here, just the certificates we are celebrating, we have a lot of professors from different fields that fail to turn around the fortunes of the country. If you speak now, they say the South is educationally advanced, maybe 60, 100 years before Northern Nigeria started. But both from the North and South, what have our researchers and professors given?
All right. We need to work hard. The universities now have the opportunity with the new regulation, the policy, to look inward. The University of Abuja, for instance, that has 11,000 hectares of land. What are we doing with the land?
Even University of Ilorin.
Yeah, what are we doing with the land? Can't we think of how to collaborate with the outsiders to be able to do something with the land? And that's how we're wrapping it up on the platform this morning. Tomorrow is public holiday, and it's Eid. And we hope that you are keeping it safe. And those who are traveling, you are also safe. And you are not forgetting those who are in captivity, to pray for them this solemn period. And we need to remind you that even as you listen to us on radio, there are those who are listening to us, watching us on TV and on YouTube. This is a simulcast by Dark Communications to provide this program to everyone across boards. Please don't forget to write to us, politicalplatform@darkgroup.com. My name is Okiri Agbonsuremi. On behalf of my colleagues, do have a wonderful celebration out there.